You've been hearing live statements from the UN before a vote today in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. With me in studio to break down all of this is I-24 News rundown anchor and political analyst Calev Ben-David. Thank you for being here with me.
Pleasure, Bianca.
First of all, what exactly are they voting on today?
Right, so this is a resolution that was being formally introduced by the Egyptians sitting in the Security Council, although they composed it together with the help of the Palestinians. The relevant clause here says that any decisions and actions which purport to have altered the character, status, or demographic composition of the holy city of Jerusalem have no legal effect, are null and void, and must be rescinded. Obviously, that's a clear reference to the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Though let's be realistic here, the U.S. decision was a decision by the United States. The UN has of course, no authority over a foreign policy decision by the United States.
Well, I was about to ask you, what is it that we can expect to see today?
Okay, so obviously the Palestinian. First of all, what we could expect to see is a vote on this resolution, as we heard. And it is likely that this vote is going to be a 14-to-1 vote, meaning 14 votes in favor, 1 vote against. No surprise who that vote against is going to be. It's going to be the United States. We heard U.S. Ambassador to the United States, Nikki Haley, calling out what she says is the hypocrisy of the United Nations, saying the United Nations passes resolution after resolution criticizing Israel on various issues, including its settlement policies. But nobody ever says the UN, at least within the United Nations, doesn't say that we're biased, whereas the UN is now being called biased because it is recognizing what it says it's a fact, which is Israel's own recognition of Jerusalem as its capital.
Well, so break this down for us. If the Palestinians know that the U.S. is likely to veto this, why are they doing this?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, like I said before, even a 14-to-1 vote is, you could say, it's a moral victory. But this could be just a prelude to further diplomatic efforts. It's setting the groundwork. A couple of moves the Palestinians could do. One, Bianca, is that they could take it out of the Security Council and bring it to the General Assembly. There is a procedure that allows for a kind of vote on this kind of resolution in the General Assembly. You call that Resolution 377A. We are aware that in the General Assembly, major votes against Israel in the General Assembly, the famous Zionism is racism vote. That was not in the Security Council because the UN could have vetoed it. That was in the General Assembly. Now, General Assembly votes, unlike the Security Council, are not binding. So, which means that the UN can't take any punitive action against Israel, even if that passes. But it does carry some kind of, let's say, diplomatic punch. So that's certainly one option they can do.
You're saying it carries some kind of diplomatic punch. On that note, here in Israel, there's a saying, shmum. Basically, the United Nations doesn't matter that much. It's an old saying. It's been going on for a long time. But in the past year or so, it seems we've seen a change in strategy from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, because Prime Minister Netanyahu has argued that the geopolitical map of the world is changing and that countries that were formerly very anti-Israel have become either more neutral towards Israel, even on the Israeli-Palestinian issue, or even perhaps supportive. But this has been a slow process. We have seen, for example, India, a country that always routinely led anti-Israel resolutions in the United Nations, in some recent years has actually come to be a little more neutral. On this case, though, because almost all the world except the United States is not prepared to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, in this case, Israel stands alone with the U.S. It's not going to get any support. But for Israel, that's key because the U.S., of course, can't stop any Security Council resolution.
Okay. Now, Calev, from the halls of the Security Council to the streets, we've been seeing on an international level a response to this decision from Donald Trump. We heard Nikki Haley today say that our hands remain extended to both parties. Do you think that that's how the Palestinians see that? Is that how the Arab world see it?
No, of course not. And they say the U.S. is no longer an honest broker. And this is going to be another element at play in the Palestinians' diplomatic playbook. Outside the UN, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is going to start traveling to other countries, to other capitals, trying on a one-to-one basis to get concessions from those countries. We know he's going to Saudi Arabia, I believe, tomorrow, because there's been a shift. It looks like in the past year, Riyadh has been tilting more to the Trump administration, to a more moderate position. So Abbas is trying to go to Riyadh to try to make his case, perhaps, to get more support in Saudi Arabia. And then, interesting, he's going to France. He's going to Paris. And that could be because the Palestinians are going to look to France and maybe President Emmanuel Macron as the kind of honest broker they perceive that President Obama was.
All right, a lot of traveling. We also know that Vice President Mike Pence is coming to Israel on Wednesday. Very briefly from you here, what can we expect to see there?
Well, what we cannot expect to see, of course, is him meeting the Palestinians. The Palestinians say they're going to boycott Vice President Pence. It may be that the President Abbas won't even be in the country. We know he's not going to be able to meet. He's not even going to go to Bethlehem to mark the Christmas holiday, which would be obviously a traditional thing for a visiting dignitary to do. So I expect with Vice President Pence, that will be really to meet and support Prime Minister Netanyahu.
All right, Calev Ben David, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. And of course, we continue to follow the story. That's it from us from the special edition of the I-24 News Desk. But don't worry, you can stay tuned. We have a news update coming up for you in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.